All right. Hello, America. This is Justin, the host of Seeking Context. I am here in Oakley, Kansas, and having a conversation today with the producer of Seeking Context, Caden Runnals. Caden, are you in El Dorado today?
I'm in El Dorado. I'm in the theater dressing room right now, so I have no control of if anyone comes in here or says anything. But yep, I'm in El Dorado, Kansas.
All right. Well, Caden and I have been working for the past couple months on an episode called 9/10, the day before. It's interviews with 7 airmen, General Ben Robinson, who was the commander of the 552nd Air Wing at Tinker Air Force Base, a pilot and a flight engineer from his wing, 2 F-15 pilots, an F-16 pilot, and a C-5 pilot, who all served on 9/11 and were swept up into the new world that we entered after the momentous events of that time. And Caden has been, we did these 7 interviews. Caden's been stitching them all together for the podcast we're releasing tomorrow. And Caden also celebrated his 21st birthday 3 days ago.
2 days, the 7th.
Yep. All right. Which means you don't have a big recollection of September 11th, do you?
No, I was 1 year old and 4 days old. So yeah, so really I don't remember any of it.
Right. Tell me, so for these interviews, you've learned, I assume, more about what happened from firsthand accounts. But tell me, when did 9/11 become something that you were aware of, this event that's pivotal for my generation? How did it sort of become something you were aware of for you and your generation?
Yeah. So when I was thinking back on all this, and I've been watching it, I remember distinctly, and I think this is just a connection in my brain, but I remember thinking about folk tales in America. So like Paul Bunyan and all these different tall tale legends. And then I also, for some reason, remember like 9/11 being part of that. And I don't know why. I think the reason why is because it's that age where I remember hearing about 9/11. So I just put them together. So I was probably like 5 or 6.
It was a folk tale.
I don't think I thought it was a folk tale, but I remember for some reason they just are connected. I don't know why.
Right.
But right around, I would say 5 or 6. And if I had to guess, it's probably from a History Channel documentary that my dad was watching or something. Mm-hmm. So at 5, I don't really remember a lot of it. I just kind of think I remembered it was a terrorist attack. It was pretty bad and people were upset about it. It wasn't until about high school where I kind of looked more into it. And I saw the video for the first time. I had no clue that there was actual video of it happening until I was 14. So, So even watching all these, I never realized that there was pictures of people falling out of the tower, and it's insane to look at. They're just not as widely circulated as I would have thought they would have been. Probably because people would be upset seeing that, but it's just something I've never really seen until you brought it up. So
that's interesting. So I remember, in the days following 9/11, the pictures of the airplane hitting and of the towers crumbling, that's all, it was 24 hours a day. Wow. And then there was talk of these psychologists are dudes, TV shows, you guys, you cannot show this forever. You're causing psychological damage.
Yeah.
And we need to not be thinking about the death. And so I never really occurred to me that stopped, because the images and the videos are all available on YouTube. But I guess if you're growing up, they're just not something that you watch. And I guess maybe you wouldn't want to show that to children.
Very true. I also thought about I was also young when I was watching South Park with my dad again. And there's an episode where they're talking about how country music is all patriotic after 9/11. And I think after watching that, I also remember that oh, this caused like something in America to happen because South Park is ripping on it. And I think, is it Alan Jackson making The Ladder to Heaven or whatever? Mm. So that, I think I've seen more parody than I have actual, information about it.
Right.
So, yeah.
And so we did these interviews. We did 7 interviews, and you were kind of you got to observe all of them. Did it change your understanding of what happened and like how like emblazoned in our brains it is for my generation?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that until you sit down with people who actually like experienced it more closely than like any of my family did, because we all live in Kansas. So it's like, oh, that was all the way, east. You don't have to worry about it. But people who were in the air, or just it's so much different for those people. And I definitely have learned more. I thought about it, but I was like, oh, there was no airplanes. They told everyone to land. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Why, just something reassured in my head about that. And then just how people, it wasn't a day. It was like a few weeks of people being, distraught and trying to process this event. There's nothing actually in my lifetime that I think is as comparable. Other than recently, like the George Floyd killing. That was just something that lasted that long. That was just in this culture, the zeitgeist of everyone. I've just never experienced something like that. So it's interesting to know that it was on that level.
Right. Yeah. There was the big deal when they let everybody go back to fly. But we didn't really get to that in the interviews, but like the first day, it was like 4 days later. I can't remember how many days we went where no commercial flights globally. And then it was like everybody was scared to fly. Probably the safest day in world history to fly. And people were cheering. So yeah, it lasted a while. One of the things that we discussed, you mentioned after, I think, my interview with General Robinson, is that you're like, wow, it's harder to, even consider some of the conspiracy theories that you've heard about. It was an inside job, or it didn't really happen. We did it on purpose. Some of these things, because once you hear from people that were directly involved in trying to protect the country, and I'm curious, I had never really thought about, I've never considered those theories to be something meaningful, because it just was too close to the event and no, I saw the airplanes, right? But for you, can you expand on that a little bit? Like, are conspiracy theories like something that your generation, your friends talk about with respect to this incident?
Yeah, definitely. I've heard it all the time. And there is people that I do know that actually believe that it was an inside job. And there's a few jokes that go around and memes through the internet. One of them is George Bush did 9/11. Don't know what that means. I remember actually saying that to my dad one time as a joke, and he goes, yeah, he was flying the airplane. And another one is that jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. And I think I've heard that, and I've kind of understood what it was talking about, but at the same time, what is, there's a plane that crashed in. It wasn't just, jet fuel, Anyway, a lot of this is the internet and just distrust of the government, that I can understand some of that, but at the same time, these people didn't experience it. And right. Just like me, you can come up with anything and a conspiracy theory because you didn't experience the actual event. I've heard some crazy stuff too about like lizard people being involved with the incident.
I have a new one for me. I'll have to look.
Yeah. Look up, reptilian, George Bush or something, and you'll find something.
Okay.
And I also can understand where people come from of like, we definitely maybe use this as a reason to, start the war on terror, to go into the Middle East. Because I know that there is like a war economy that America is greatly involved in. But at the same time, I doubt George Bush called, these terrorists and said, you know what, I think it'd be a good idea if you crashed into two of our buildings. There's just no way that would happen.
Right.
So it's so after listening to all these people, someone would have said something by now if it was a conspiracy theory. You can't keep that under wraps for that long. But also the people we've interviewed have had such a, you can just tell that it's emotional baggage that even being in the military, they're still getting through and still thinking about regularly. It can't be a conspiracy theory after that. So,
right. Yeah. I had a conversation about, it was in 2009. I was in Petra. It's in Jordan. It's close to Israel. And I had a conversation with this gentleman. We were sitting outside, just at a bar. He was probably Muslim, but he was Arab. And he believed that it was an inside job, that we did it on purpose. And I'm like, okay, there's no way. How can you possibly believe that? And he was trying to explain that this is a widely held belief that he sort of subscribes to. And what you said is what he told me was, he's like, well, what do you guys do? You use all your war on terror, everything you've done since then. You're just like, well, 9/11, 9/11, 9/11, and you use it as a reason for everything. That's the way he viewed it, and the way he described other people in the Middle East viewing it, and that because of the response that they viewed as out of step with the event itself, they're like, you did it on purpose to be able to give an excuse to go do these other things. And it's completely erroneous, but there is a bit of, I can understand the context he's coming from.
Right.
He's like you. It's not even just Kansas, they're in Jordan, or they're in Israel or Saudi Arabia, and they're viewing it from a very different lens.
I completely agree. I do. Instead of, I think, us causing it to give a reason why we do things in different countries, Big Brother, all other countries, I think it's more of like, it kind of happened, and so we just refer back to it all the time. I think rather than us causing it, I think it just fell into America's lap. Not saying in a good way at all, but it's something in our back pocket that, like, this happened to us. And so that's why we're going to, send missile strikes over to,
right.
But no, I understand where he's coming from. Right. But at the same time, it's a lot different from people who were involved in it.
Right. Well, so we're going, podcast is going 9/10 the day before. We're launching it. We're releasing it tomorrow. It's going to be done. I'm like, so tell me about your day. You had class this morning. You got to go to work. Are you working for Bob Peterson this afternoon?
That's right. So I had an 8 a.m. and that was a stagecraft class. And then I had a 3-hour drawing class. And now I'm doing this quick little interview and meeting. And then I'll be working from about 1 to 5:30 for making this set. And then I'll come home and I'll edit some more. And I think we're going to make it. I think it's going to be done.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's touch base around 6 or 7. And I'm really hoping that I saw that the rough draft that you sent me last night is really good. So good. I'm impressed. Have you produced a multi-interview video podcast before? I would say this is
never before. This is definitely a resume builder. This is, I was actually thinking of like when like the HR person asks you like, what is a challenge that you've encountered and how did you overcome it? And I've been like, I'll just talk about this interview if I ever need to, or this entire special. But yeah, it's something, this is brand new to me, but we've done so much before that it's kind of built up to this moment. So
Right.
Yeah.
We got the interviews down, but we've never produced. We're just alive. We're a live production studio, so we don't have to do anything with it. But it's looking good. The music is good.
Good.
Got some good reviews from music, and great job. Maybe ask Bob if you can get off at 4:30.
Okay.
Or maybe I'll call him.
Yeah, you send him a call. He did ask 2 days ago. He was like, "So when's our next podcast?" And then he was upset that he had a squeaky chair still because he thought that his chair was distracting during the interview. So he understands, I guess.
But he wants to be back on Seeking Context for some more discussion.
He does. He really enjoyed it.
Okay. Well, he was a good guest. So I'll let you get back to work. And so for anybody that's listening, 9/10 the day before will be released tomorrow. We're going to be talking about a time before and after the world changed. And if you've got your own experience of what happened for you, whether you were in the military or you were a first responder or you were a citizen whose life was upended by the events or just maybe the day, we'd love to hear your story as well, because there's every interview I've had, sort of, you peel the onion back and there's 15 more stories that add context to one of the most impactful events of our lifetime and of the time before Caden arrived on this planet.
That's right. I'm just a little baby. I still am.
All right. Well, good to see you, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. And we may be live tomorrow at 10 a.m. unless we need a little more time for the podcast, and then we will be releasing it, I would say, by 5 p.m.
I like it. I like that goal. I think we're going to make it easy.
All right. Well, I'll see you tonight.
Okay.
All right. Bye, everybody.